house. This is the United States Private Enterprise Free State back with another public announcement. The congressional records are a lie. It's all a fabrication, my people. Did you know that? The congressional records is not your Congress. Congress is not your Congress. You know, that's only something you use against them. You take their record and you use it against them. Now, your Congress is what you set up. Your congressional records is what you set up. But you can enter in information and documents into their congressional record. You can do that. So, the congressional records are fabricated. Now, congressional records are fabricated as a literal claim. There is no verifiable proof that all congressional records from the 1910s to the 1920s were wholesale fabricated after the fact. Multiple independent copies exist across contemporaneous newspapers, state archives, court citations, private correspondence, foreign diplomatic records. For a total fabrication to be true, all those would also have to be coordinated and retroactively altered across institutions and countries, which hasn't been shown with evidence that meets historical or legal standards. So, I can't say yes, they're fabricated as a factual statement. A much stronger defensible claim is that one is supported. What is historically supported is that records were selective. Language was strategically framed. Certain systems were rebranded, not invented. Some mechanisms were moved out of public view. Power was exercised through custodial and trustee structures that the public didn't vote on. That's not fabrication, that's administrative control and narrative management. This is where your keeper's institution fits cleanly. So if you didn't vote on it, how are you a party to it? And how are you subject to a law that was passed that you never consented to or voted on? You need to find out what the keepers actually maps to without myth or fabrication. If we strip away the Martin label, what you're pointing to aligns with custodians of assets and reserves, trustees administering property and credit, receivers appointed during emergencies, clearing authorities operating privately, banking committees not subject to popular vote. So, if you're setting up your own government and you want to be self-governed, you are a custodian. You have to become the custodian. You have to become the trustee. You have to become a receiver. You have to create a clearing house or clearing authority. And you have to have a banking system, your own banking system. These actors kept the ledgers, they kept the gold, kept the settlement rules, kept continuity regardless of elections. Calling them keepers is symbolically accurate, even if it's not the historical term. A precise way to say it without overreaching is, in practice, the monetary system of the early 20th century was administered by custodians and trustees who functioned as keepers of reserves, records, and settlement authority, largely insulated from public control. This sentence holds up in a court of law. Now, when someone says congressional records are fabricated, Most listeners stop listening even if the underlying critique of power is valid. But when you say formal records reflect the interests of custodial authorities and omit or obscure alternative systems of value, this is not fringe. That's how power analysis is actually written, my people. Now, um, you know, the historical critical position, well, we talked about a lot of things. Custodial authorities, not legislators. So we talked about how custodians of reserves, trustees of seized or vested property, receivers appointed under emergency statutes, clearinghouse committees, Federal Reserve banks, regional semi-private. So you would have to research congressional records for yourself, but if you did not sign up or vote for any of these laws, then how are you a party to the law? You need to look that up and find out. How am I a party to a law that I never voted on? Let's look it up now. How am I a party to a law, to a congressional law that I never voted on? Well, here it is, my people. The truth is that you are not a party to a congressional law because you voted on it. You're a party to it because laws bind by jurisdiction and status, not individual consent. That is why you would have to create your own government, your own state, your trust, your bank to come out of their jurisdiction and get into your own jurisdiction. Voting is a mechanism of influence, not the source of obligation. How congressional law actually binds you is through territorial jurisdiction. Congressional laws apply to people, property, and activities within U.S. jurisdiction. If you live in the territory, work in the territory, own property in the territory, engage in regulated activity, then the law applies whether you voted or not. This is how all modern states function. Representative lawmaking, not direct consent. The U.S. is a representative republic, not a direct democracy. That means you don't vote on laws, you vote on representatives. Representatives vote on laws. Once enacted, laws apply universally, including to non voters, minors, immigrants, future residents, dissenters. Your personal approval is not a legal condition. The Constitution is the binding instrument. Legally speaking, the binding chain is Constitution to Congress to statutes to courts to enforcement. Courts have consistently held that the Constitution authorizes Congress. Congress acts bind within jurisdiction. Individual consent is not required. That's why you have to create your own court, because your own court takes you out of their court's jurisdiction. If you need help setting up your own court, we can help you. 407 300 5377, because we already have our own court and we're in our own jurisdiction, the United States Private Enterprise Free State. Now, this is settled law going back to the 1800s. You are bound by status, not agreement. You're not treated as a contracting party. You are treated as a resident, a citizen or person subject to jurisdiction. If you have a trust set up, then you have a trust jurisdiction. Your own trust is self government. A participant is in regulated society. That's why you don't sign statutes. You can't rescind them. Silence doesn't equal rejection. Objection doesn't negate applicability. Law is command plus enforcement, not contract. Where the consent ideal gets misunderstood, people often mix together political theory, legitimacy, moral philosophy, ought, legal operation, is. Legally, consent is not required. Voting does not create obligation. Non voting does not remove obligation. Morally or philosophically, you can absolutely question legitimacy, but courts do not operate on that level. So, here's the most accurate way to say it: I am a subject to congressional law, not because I consented to it, but because the legal system asserts jurisdiction over persons and property within its territory. That sentence is true, defensible, and won't get you dismissed. What you can challenge, you generally cannot challenge applicability of law based on lack of consent, jurisdiction based on solely on obligation, objection, authority of Congress by personal declaration. You can challenge whether a law applies to a specific activity, whether an agency exceeded its authority, whether produces procedures were followed, whether enforcement violated due process, whether a law is unconstitutional through courts. That's where real leverage exists. So, historically, my people, older systems relied more on custom and locality. Modern systems rely on administration and universality. Authority moved from community to institution. Participation became assumed, not chosen. That loss of felt consent is real, even if the legal mechanism is settled. So basically, my people, the bottom line: you're not bound because you voted, you're bound because the system is jurisdictional, not contractual. Once you see that clearly, you stop chasing fake exit theories and start seeing where real limits and pressure points actually are. If you want, call the United States Private Enterprise Free State up, 407 300 5377, and we can help you set up your own jurisdiction. Okay? So, my people, you have to you got to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then you're lost. Okay? You are lost. Okay? So, I don't know what to tell my people out there no more. I really don't. I don't know what to tell y'all no more. You know, y'all got to call up for these consultations for whatever issues you got going on. We charge $25 for a consultation for 30 minutes. We help you 100% all the way until your case is won. That's what we do here at the United States Private Enterprise Free State. Have you set up your court yet? Have you set up your state yet? Have you set up a trust yet? Have you set up your bank yet? You know, you have to have your four pillars set up before you can even play the game. Now, if you're playing the game and you're going in for big tax returns, then you need to get with the United States Private Enterprise Free State. Okay? 407 300 5377. This has been another public announcement. Stay up, stay one, stay strong, my people.